Today, it is the most valuable company in the history of capitalism. A colossus of silicon that powers everything from the world's fastest supercomputers to the artificial intelligence that is currently rewriting the global economy. But the story of NVIDIA did not begin in a pristine corporate boardroom. It began in 1993 in a booth at a Denny's diner in Silicon Valley, with three friends and a vision that the rest of the world thought was impossible. Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Preen believed that the PC would become a consumer device for enjoying games and multimedia, and that to achieve this, the industry needed a new type of processor, the GPU. At the time, there was no market, no software ecosystem, and dozens of heavily funded competitors. NVIDIA was 30 days away from bankruptcy more than once. This is the story of the ultimate technological gamble. How a company focused on rendering polygons for video games inadvertently built the hardware architecture that would give birth to artificial general intelligence. The early days of NVIDIA were defined by a series of brutal existential crises. Their first chip, the NV1, was a commercial failure. The company was rapidly running out of money, and Jensen Huang was forced to lay off half of his staff. With only enough capital for one final attempt, they went all in on a new architecture, the RIVA 128. This was a massive technical risk, abandoning their previous rendering approach for the emerging industry standard of polygons. But it was a risk driven by absolute necessity. When the RIVA 128 launched in 1997, it was a massive success, saving the company from the brink of collapse and establishing NVIDIA as a serious contender in the graphics market. This near-death experience hardwired a culture of relentless innovation and existential urgency into the DNA of the company. From that moment on, NVIDIA operated under the assumption that they were always 30 days away from going out of business, a philosophy that continues to drive their breakneck pace of development today.
Deep learning.
In 1999, NVIDIA achieved a breakthrough that would change the trajectory of computing forever. They invented the Graphics Processing Unit, or GPU. The GeForce 256 was not just another graphics card. It was the world's first fully integrated processor capable of handling the entire 3D rendering pipeline on a single chip. Before the GPU, the Central Processing Unit, or CPU, was forced to calculate the complex mathematics of lighting and geometry, creating a massive bottleneck. NVIDIA's innovation was to offload these highly parallel, math-intensive tasks to a dedicated processor designed specifically for concurrent calculations. This fundamental architectural shift allowed for a massive leap in the visual fidelity of video games and simulations. But more importantly, it introduced a new paradigm of computing, parallel processing. The CPU was a brilliant generalist, capable of handling complex logic sequentially. But the GPU was an army of specialists, capable of performing thousands of simple calculations simultaneously. This distinction would soon become the foundation of the AI revolution. The true turning point for NVIDIA, and the decision that elevated them from a gaming hardware company to a global technological superpower, occurred in 2006. Under the visionary leadership of Jensen Huang, NVIDIA released CUDA. CUDA was a revolutionary software platform that allowed developers to use standard programming languages like C and C++ to access the massive parallel processing power of the GPU for general-purpose computing. Suddenly, the GPU was no longer restricted to rendering pixels on a screen. It could be used to simulate fluid dynamics, sequence DNA, analyze seismic data, and perform complex financial modeling.
In this industry,
but this pivot was incredibly costly.
It's about driving
integrating
up the scale
CUDA
of computing.
capabilities into every NVIDIA chip added significant manufacturing costs at a time when Wall Street was demanding higher profit margins. For years, investors punished NVIDIA's stock price, arguing that Jensen Huang was wasting billions of dollars on a scientific computing platform with no clear mass market. But Huang refused to back down. He believed that if they built the platform, the applications would eventually follow. Jensen Huang's multi-billion-dollar gamble on CUDA paid off in a way that no one, not even NVIDIA, could have fully predicted. In 2012, a group of researchers at the University of Toronto, led by Geoffrey Hinton, entered a computer vision competition called ImageNet. Instead of writing complex, rules-based algorithms to identify images, they used a completely different approach: deep learning. They built a neural network, a mathematical structure inspired by the human brain. But training this network required a staggering amount of computational power. Traditional CPUs were far too slow. So they turned to NVIDIA GPUs. Using just two GTX 580 graphics cards programmed with CUDA, they trained their model, AlexNet, and utterly crushed the competition, achieving a level of accuracy previously thought impossible. This was the big bang of modern artificial intelligence. The academic world suddenly realized that the massively parallel architecture of the GPU was the exact hardware required to train deep neural networks. NVIDIA had inadvertently spent a decade building the perfect engine for AI. Recognizing the seismic shift triggered by AlexNet, NVIDIA rapidly pivoted its entire corporate strategy. They evolved from a company that sold graphics cards to gamers into a company that sold entire supercomputing infrastructures to data centers. They developed specialized architectures like the V100 and the A100, chips designed explicitly for the matrix multiplication required by deep learning. They introduced NVLink, a high-speed interconnect that allowed thousands of GPUs to act as a single, unified brain. And they acquired Mellanox, a leader in high-performance networking, to ensure they controlled the entire data pipeline. This vertical integration created an impenetrable moat around their business. By the time tech giants like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon realized that AI was the future of their businesses, they had no choice but to build their massive cloud infrastructures entirely on NVIDIA hardware. NVIDIA didn't just participate in the AI boom. They became the sole arms dealer in the most lucrative technological arms race in history. The culmination of NVIDIA's transformation arrived in late 2022 with the release of ChatGPT by OpenAI. This was the moment that artificial intelligence crossed the threshold from an academic curiosity into a global consumer phenomenon. The large language model powering ChatGPT, GPT-3, and eventually GPT-4, was trained on a massive cluster of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs. The sheer computational horsepower required to process billions of parameters and generate human-like text in real time was staggering. When the world saw the capabilities of ChatGPT, every major corporation, government, and research institution panicked. The race to develop sovereign, proprietary AI models began overnight, and the only way to compete was to acquire NVIDIA's latest hardware, the H100 Hopper GPU. Demand vastly outstrips supply, transforming NVIDIA chips into the most sought-after commodity on the planet, driving the company's valuation past the $1, $2, and eventually $3 trillion marks in record time. But NVIDIA is not resting on its laurels. To maintain their dominance and push the boundaries of what is possible, they have unveiled their next-generation architecture, Blackwell. The Blackwell platform is a quantum leap in performance and efficiency, designed specifically for the trillion-parameter models that will define the next phase of AI. It is not just a single chip, but a massive, integrated system featuring hundreds of billions of transistors, advanced liquid cooling, and next-generation networking. Blackwell is engineered to reduce the cost and energy consumption of AI inference by orders of magnitude, making it possible to deploy highly advanced intelligence across every industry, from healthcare and finance to autonomous transportation and robotics. With Blackwell, NVIDIA is signaling that the era of the CPU as the primary engine of computing is officially over. We have entered the era of accelerated computing, where the GPU is the undisputed sovereign. Beyond training AI models, NVIDIA is pioneering the infrastructure for the next evolution of the Internet, the industrial metaverse. Through their Omniverse platform, NVIDIA is enabling the creation of physically accurate digital twins of the real world. Companies like BMW and Amazon are using Omniverse to simulate entire factories and logistics networks in real time, optimizing their operations before a single physical brick is laid. This is the convergence of NVIDIA's deep roots in 3D graphics and their mastery of artificial intelligence. By simulating the laws of physics and injecting AI agents into these virtual environments, NVIDIA is creating the ultimate training ground for autonomous systems. The robots that will eventually navigate our streets and work in our factories will first learn to walk, drive, and manipulate objects within the perfectly simulated realities powered by NVIDIA Omniverse. The unparalleled success of NVIDIA cannot be understood without examining the unique leadership philosophy of its founder, Jensen Huang. Unlike many tech CEOs who operate from ivory towers, Huang is deeply involved in the technical details of the company. He eschews traditional corporate hierarchies, preferring a flat organizational structure where information flows freely and rapidly. He fosters a culture of intellectual honesty, demanding that his engineers confront failures directly and pivot quickly. Huang's signature leather jacket is a symbol of a relentless, founder-led mentality that treats every major product cycle as a bet the company moment. This combination of long-term vision, the willingness to invest billions in platforms like CUDA years before they generate revenue, and hyper-agile execution is the true competitive advantage of NVIDIA. It is a culture built on the paranoid assumption that the future must be invented, or the company will die. NVIDIA's journey from a scrappy startup fighting for survival in the 1990s to the foundational pillar of the global AI economy is a testament to the power of visionary engineering. They did not just build faster chips. They anticipated the future of computing and spent 2 decades patiently constructing the software and hardware ecosystems required to make it a reality. As we stand on the precipice of the artificial general intelligence era, the infrastructure that will support this profound leap in human capability is being forged in the silicon foundries orchestrated by NVIDIA. The gamble they took in that Denny's booth over 30 years ago has paid off, and in the process, they have built the engine that will drive the next century of technological progress. The age of accelerated computing is accelerating, and the race to define the future of AI is unfolding right now. If you want to understand the companies, the technologies, and the strategies that are shaping tomorrow, make sure to subscribe. We will continue to bring you deep dives into the empires of silicon and software. Until next time, keep watching the horizon.